This is Tina Douglas, and you're listening to the Liam Photography Podcast with your host, my husband, Liam Douglas. Enjoy!
Welcome back to the show. Liam here, and this is episode 502 of the Liam Photography Podcast for the week of April 16th, 2026. In today's episode, a new medium format film camera, new Adobe Premiere Color Mode, Canon's new Cine-Servo, and more. So let's go ahead and get into our first story for this week. One of the best things about medium format photography is the variety of frame sizes available, says a new Kickstarter campaign for the VZ6617 variable frame medium format film camera. The camera aims to take full advantage of this aspect of medium format, enabling photographers to swap between different framing and aspect ratios at any time, even within the same roll of film. The VZ6617 has a stepless, quote, variable zone film gate mechanism that lets photographers switch between formats ranging from 6x6 all the way up to 6x17 on the same roll of 120 format film. This eliminates the need to carry multiple medium format camera systems and lets photographers adhere each shot to their desired format, the creator Francis Gehring of Exposing Engineering. Quote, most medium format film cameras lock photographers into a single aspect ratio for an entire roll of film. Exposing Engineering explains, if a photographer loads a 6x6 camera, every frame must be square. If they choose a panoramic camera, every frame must be panoramic. If they want both, they must carry multiple camera bodies with them, end quote. The VZ6617's 3D printed articulating variable zone film gate promises symmetric masking of the exposure area with a simple knob. Capturing frames up to 6x17 requires a lens with a very large image circle. So the VZ6617 uses, quote, widely available large format lenses, end quote, and works with interchangeable lens cones that feature an integrated dark slide to support mid-roll lens swaps. Exposing Engineering says that the VZ6617 works with large format lenses that have integrated shutter and aperture mechanisms like those typically used alongside large format view cameras. Each VZ6617 ships with a lens cone that promises the correct spacing between the lens and the film plane. Lenses mount using their standard thread and retaining ring, and users attach them to the integrated focusing helicoid. Focus is achieved through zone focusing or by estimating the distance to the subject and setting a matching distance mark on the helicoid. A comprehensive list of compatible lenses is available on the Kickstarter campaign page, including models from Schneider Kreuznach, Nikon, Rodenstock, and Fujifilm. The creators explained that they went through 5 generations of pre-production prototypes, each with dozens of iterations. The VZ6617 has been rigorously tested in a wide range of environments, including European streets, Bay Area beaches, desert trails in the American Southwest, and the snowy Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Although the camera withstood these tests, the team has carefully designed the new camera to be user repairable and serviceable. Quote, after the Kickstarter campaign, select components and instructional videos will be made available for repair and servicing on your own, end quote. Exposing Engineering explains. Quote, everything was designed with this in mind, so much so that only a single type and size of screwdriver is necessary to take the entire camera body apart. While we haven't experienced a component or mechanism failure with our pre-production prototypes yet, we want to make sure the camera is well designed for repairability to keep performing as it should, end quote. The VZ6617 starts at $549 for a starter bundle that includes the camera body and a 90mm focal length lens cone with an M6.5 focusing helicoid. A lens is not included. There is also an early release bundle for $649 that includes the camera, a 90mm focal length lens cone with helicoid, a magnetically attached cable release, and an optical viewfinder. The $799 system bundle includes the same items as the $649 bundle, plus a second lens cone of the buyer's choice and a ground glass back. In all cases, the buyer will need to supply their own lenses. Exposing Engineering says early release bundles are slated to ship in June, about a month after the Kickstarter campaign concludes. The project has already met its modest $7,500 funding goal and has 26 backers with nearly a month left to go. So definitely some exciting news there, especially if you're into film photography and especially medium format film photography. This new camera can give you the ability to have any and all medium format aspect ratios while using a single roll of film. Definitely a creative solution, and one that I think will be embraced by the medium format community for sure. Adobe Premiere, which torpedoed the Pro in its name earlier this year, has a new first-of-its-kind color grading system dubbed Color Mode. Unveiled ahead of NAB 2026, the new Color Mode, which is launching first in Adobe Premiere Beta, has been designed from the ground up for video editors. Although Adobe doesn't say as much, the new Color Mode seems like a direct response to DaVinci Resolve's color editing solutions, which have rightly earned Resolve many supporters and converts over the years. Quote, with all the new tools that work the way you think, you can finally craft brilliant color with confidence and control right next to your edit, Adobe promises, noting that Color Mode exists right inside of Premiere, no more app switch required, end quote. The company insists that each control, layout, and interaction inside Color Mode was built with video editors in mind and designed to address their primary concerns and desires surrounding color. Quote, it works the way you think, Adobe says. The gap between how you wish your video looked and your finished result just got a lot smaller, end quote. These are ambitious claims, and Adobe's attempt to achieve them relies upon the new Color Mode tab inside Premiere. When using Color Mode, a new user interface with a big preview window appears. Inside this workspace are an array of new user adjustable style presets. Editors can adjust saturation shift, hue shift, and luminance shift for all of these presets, essentially crafting their own color grades, and it is designed to be very easy to use. However, for those who want even more control, there are more options in Color Mode. Video editors can tweak basic things like exposure, contrast, temperature, balance, and saturation. But specific colors can be tuned across the exposure of color range, meaning it's straightforward to make shadows bluer, highlights more orange, and independently fine-tune each color in a video, no matter how bright or dark it is. Friend of Petapixel and YouTube creator Matt Johnson test drove Color Mode ahead of today's reveal, calling it, quote, the largest update Premiere has ever received. Color grading has only grown in importance over the years. Having an editor-first color grading system that reimagines how easily achieve professional color is truly a game changer, Johnson says. Johnson is clearly a fan, and it will be interesting to see how other Premiere users respond to the new Color Mode. It is a significant response by Adobe to competing applications in the space, namely DaVinci Resolve. Whether it keeps people invested in the Premiere ecosystem or attracts new users under Adobe's umbrella remains to be seen. Adobe Premiere Beta with Color Mode is available now to Premiere and Creative Cloud Pro subscribers. And it's interesting to see Adobe make this move, but not shocking because, as the article says, DaVinci Resolve has been pioneering the video editing space for a long time now. And it's one of the reasons why that it's getting to the point where DaVinci Resolve is used by more professional studios in the Hollywood, TV shows, movie industries, and the likes, is because of the capabilities and the flexibility overall that DaVinci Resolve offers and the complete control of your color grading and other aspects of your films. So definitely interesting to see Adobe hitting back with this new Color Mode capability. Canon has unveiled the Cine-Servo 40 to 1200 millimeter t5 to 10.8 lens, a new version of the company's extremely popular Cine-Servo 50 to 1000 millimeter t5 to 8.9 lens. The new Cine-Servo 40 to 1200 millimeter lens offers an expanded zoom range, being both wider and longer than before, while retaining the same size and weight of its predecessor. Like the 50 to 1000, the new Cine-Servo 40 to 1200 also includes a built-in 1.5 times extender, which not only increases its range to 1800 millimeters in its native Super 35 format, but enlarges the image circle to cover full-frame image sensors. It is difficult to overstate just how widely used the Canon Cine-Servo 50 to 1000 t5.0 to 8.9 lens is among broadcast and documentary applications. Numerous wildlife filmmakers have described the lens as a staple in their kit to petapixel over the years, and there is every reason to believe the new 40 to 1200 millimeter will occupy a similar role. The video discusses the origins of the 50 to 1000, and the lessons included apply equally to the new 40 to 1200 millimeter. And you can check that video out if you go to this show notes for today's episode and click on the link for this article. The expanded zoom range from 50 to 1000 to 40 to 1200 comes at the cost of a slower maximum aperture. However, in most cases, this will likely be a worthwhile trade-off. The lens remains at t5 until 560 millimeters, then slows to its slowest maximum aperture of t10.8 at the extreme telephoto end. Another big change is the move to a native RF mount version, which was a much requested feature. This enables dual pixel CMOS AF2 autofocus performance on compatible Canon EOS RF mount cameras, including the EOS C400, C80, C70, C50, and R5C. For the EOS C400, the new lens also supports auto exposure ramping compensation with a firmware update. This feature has been available on other EOS cinema cameras and helps compensate for light loss during zooming, since the Cine-Servo 40 to 1200 is a variable aperture zoom. The new Cine-Servo lens works alongside a next-generation USB-C drive unit. When using the new USB-C terminal with a compatible USB PD device, the lens can zoom 50% faster, racking from 40 to 1200 millimeters in just 1 second, rather than the standard 1.5 seconds. The USB-C port can also be used to import-export settings, adjust servo drive preferences, perform firmware updates, and more. The Canon Cine-Servo 40 to 1200 t5 to 10.8 lens is very advanced and thus comes with a price tag to match. The lens will be available in September for an estimated retail price of $79,999, a modest increase over the $75,840 price tag of its predecessor. So it's definitely great to see that Canon is creating new versions of their Cine-Servo lenses to be used in the film industry. I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people very happy. And the price went up a little bit from the original version, but not too terribly large an amount. Although, to me, that's a lot of money. $5,000 difference nearly is quite a bit of cabbage, but for professional studios, I'm sure it's a drop in the bucket. There's little doubt that the Artemis II astronauts took some astounding photos on their historic trip to the moon, but even their photography instructors back on Earth were taken aback by just how well they did. NASA photography and video trainers Paul Reinhardt and Katrina Willoughby tell Reuters that all astronauts undergo 4 to 6 hours of camera training upon joining the program. But once they have a space assignment, they will complete 10 photography classes, which amounts to about 20 hours of training. Quote, most people can use a camera and get a photo that is good enough, but good enough isn't what we're after scientifically. We're really teaching the astronauts how to go beyond the basics, Willoughby tells the Rochester Institute of Technology, or RIT. Quote, being able to understand how to use the equipment and what the options are gives us a lot more capability, end quote. Reinhardt and Willoughby both trained the Artemis II crew, which included building a mock-up of the Orion capsule and a giant inflatable moon suspended in the dark. Quote, for training, we'll give them a problem or request for a certain kind of photo, and then we let them work through how they're going to accomplish the task, Reinhardt tells RIT. In the end, when they're on their space mission, we can't be there with them, so they need to feel confident they can figure out some of this stuff on their own, end quote. Reinhardt notes that most astronauts have very little experience in photography, so the training before the fly is crucial. It's not just about getting stunning photos either. The cameras are crucial to the overall operation. Quote, if something breaks, for example, we need a picture or video to show us on the ground what's going on. Sometimes the imagery is what is needed to move forward, so it is important that the crew can get it right the first time, says Willoughby. Much was made about the choice of camera for the mission, a 10-year-old Nikon D5 DSLR. Reinhardt tells Reuters that the workhorse camera is spaceflight proven. Quote, we had a lot of flight experience with it, Reinhardt says. We knew it could handle radiation, at least several years of radiation dosage on the ISS, and it didn't have any problems with it. End quote. As Petapixel explains, the Nikon D5 also has incredible low-light performance and remains the best high ISO performer in all Nikon digital cameras, including mirrorless. This makes it ideal for capturing photos of the Earth, even the side that's in shadow. The other notable camera on board was the iPhone 17 Pro Max, a late edition, but both the Nikon and the iPhone share a similar challenge, transmitting the data. Quote, one thing we do have to think about on board is what does it take to get files down, Willoughby tells Reuters. And unfortunately, we don't have bandwidth, and that's something that a lot of people down here on Earth are really used to instantly having. Nevertheless, the crew did manage to send the photos back to Earth before their successful splashdown. And I thought this was a great article. I think it's great that we're pursuing sending people to the moon once again. And I guess we're talking about building a permanent base there as the springboard for the projects to get to Mars. Because we can make fuel for our rockets on the surface of the moon, mining elements that are already there. And it's definitely not surprising to see the Nikon D5 in the mix because that camera is spaceflight proven. It's been used for quite a few years for spaceflight missions and stuff like that. And it is cool that the astronauts are able to get the iPhone 17 Pro Max approved as well. All right, I'm going to take a short break right here, and then I'll be right back. We hope you're enjoying this episode of the Liam Photography Podcast. You can visit the homepage for the show at liamphotographypodcast.com for show notes and links. You can post your questions, comments, or requests for future episodes at the Liam Photography Podcast Facebook group, or you can also email them to the show at liam@liamphotographypodcast.com. You can find the show on Twitter and Instagram at LiamPhotoATL. You can tweet the show, just insert the hashtag LiamPhotoPodcast. And now, back to the show. And we are back. Sony's full-frame alpha cameras rightly get a lot of attention, especially among enthusiasts and professional photographers and hybrid creators. However, the company tells Petapixel it remains very committed to APS-C, and that demand for APS-C products has steadily increased over the years. Among full-frame mirrorless camera manufacturers, Sony has a relatively healthy assortment of APS-C products. In Sony's current lineup, it sells 5 interchangeable lens alpha cameras with APS-C image sensors, the ZV-E10-2, the ZV-E10, those are both vlogging cameras, and the more traditional, generally photo-oriented Alpha 6100, 6400, and 6700 models. Sony currently sells 15 APS-C E-mount lenses, including 2 converters, while Canon and Nikon both make APS-C mirrorless cameras and lenses. Neither has the quantity or arguably the quality of Sony's APS-C lineup. Even still, Sony is consistently busier with full-frame releases. Since the company released the ZV-E10 Mark II in July 2024, 4 new full-frame alpha cameras have been released. Lenses are even more tilted towards the full-frame FE models. Sony has launched 7 FE lenses since the E-mount, 16 to 50 millimeter f3.5 to 5.6 PZ OSS Mark II arrived in 2024, and even that was just a slight refresh of an earlier model. Of Sony's newest 15 lenses, the 16 to 50 Mark II is the only APS-C model. Admittedly, Sony had something of an APS-C blowout back in June of 2022 when it unveiled 3 new APS-C lenses, the 10 to 20 f4 PZG, the 15mm f1.4G, and 11mm f1.8, all at once. The point is that, from the outside looking in, it can seem like Sony is really only focused on full-frame cameras, but the company told Petapixel at CP Plus 2026 that this is not the case. Quote, APS-C is important. Looking at the market, we believe it's growing, said Yasufumi Machiadi, General Manager, Camera Business Development, Sony Imaging Entertainment Business Unit. Quote, APS-C demand has been steadily growing, so we see it as important as well. We want to see the market trend and discuss future development. APS-C cameras are routinely popular with photographers, although only one Sony camera made Japanese retailer Map Camera's 10 best-selling digital cameras of 2025, the full-frame A7C II. 5 of the cameras on the list are APS-C models, while just 3 feature full-frame image sensors. Japanese retail analyst BCN plus R, which covers approximately 40% of Japan's retail market, including general-purpose electronic stores, published a list of the 10 most popular cameras in Japan in 2025. The Sony ZV-E10 Mark II was number 2, while the ZV-E10 and the A6400 landed in 4th and 5th place. The full-frame A7C II was 8th. Clearly, while many hardcore photographers tend to focus relatively more on full-frame cameras and lenses, the broader market appreciates APS-C's blend of more compact designs, lower prices, and strong photo and video features. As Fujifilm has shown with the success of its X system, APS-C cameras appeal to a wide range of photographers from beginners to pros. Sony told Petapixel it does not see any difficulty marketing its APS-C products, while also boasting the image quality and performance advantages of its full-frame lineup. Quote, even if customers start with APS-C, some will upgrade to full-frame once they enjoy our products, Mashati explained. We don't limit the APS-C business, end quote. Looking at where Sony's APS-C system seems to find the most success, the company's vlogging-focused models are particularly popular. Although the A6400 and A6700 are good cameras, Sony's emphasis on hybrid performance and video features in its APS-C product lineup have proved to be an area of relative success. Canon has tried to grab a share of the same market with cameras like the PowerShot V1 and the Canon EOS R50V, but Sony was the first major manufacturer to seriously commit to the space, and it has paid dividends. What remains to be seen is what's next for Sony's APS-C product lineup. Things have been pretty quiet there lately, and although the entry-level and mid-range market is not necessarily one that demands constant upgrades, it would be very interesting to see Sony give APS-C cameras higher-end photo features. Sony, of course, won't discuss future products, but there are plenty of photographers out there who might appreciate Sony's take on an enthusiast-level APS-C camera with a compact but rugged A7 series body design and the company's latest processor. There is always a delicate balance to strike with APS-C cameras and lenses in a predominantly full-frame product lineup. APS-C cameras and lenses are ideally smaller and lighter than their full-frame counterparts, so there is a built-in limit to how rugged and performant cameras can be and how fast lenses can be as well. Another important factor in the appeal of APS-C for many customers is that cameras and lenses are relatively more affordable. It's not feasible for any company, Sony included, to pull all its latest and greatest technology in an APS-C camera targeting an aggressive price point. However, there may be more room above the A6700's $1599 price point in the market. There is also a lot of space below the A7 IV in Sony's current lineup. An APS-C A7 Lite would arguably deliver a more compelling blend of features and value than older full-frame models like the A7 III from 2018, which has an MSRP of $1,998. I would love to see Sony push its APS-C cameras further in terms of features, design, and performance. Sony has so many great lenses for wildlife sports, two genres that benefit greatly from the 1.5 times crop factor of APS-C image sensors. Although it hasn't been updated in a while, it's hard not to look at Canon's EOS R7 and wonder if Sony could take some inspiration. The R7, especially at launch, embraced many of Canon's highest-end features in a slightly smaller, reasonably affordable, enthusiast-oriented body design. Sony has nearly all the pieces it needs to create something with a similar spirit, but Sony Alpha technology and soul, and I think it would be a great addition to the Alpha family. So it is good to hear that Sony is not giving up on their APS-C segment of cameras and lenses. It's definitely a growing portion or segment of the photography and videography world. I mean, look at Fujifilm. They're extremely successful with their X line, which are all APS-C cameras. And so there's definitely plenty of room in the APS-C market for Sony, Canon, and Nikon to continue releasing and innovating in that segment of the market. Alongside the exciting new Cine-Servo 40 to 1200mm T5 to 10.8 video lens, Canon also unveiled the MS510 multi-purpose camera at NAB 2026. This highly specialized new camera is not built for typical consumer use, but it's still worth checking out thanks to its impressive technology. At the heart of the Canon MS510 is a newly designed single-photon avalanche diode, or SPAD, image sensor. This 3.2 megapixel Type 1 image sensor works fundamentally different from the typical CMOS image sensors found in nearly every other digital camera. A CMOS image sensor measures the amount of light that strikes each pixel and then converts the analog signal into digital data. However, the SPAD sensor instead measures each particle of light that strikes each pixel of the image sensor. That might not sound like much of a difference, but in extreme situations, it's dramatic. At a very simple level, with a CMOS sensor, light accumulates and charges the photodiode over a designated exposure time, and then the amount of total charge is converted into a digital signal. There are some potential issues with this type of image sensor. Beyond the risk of photodiode oversaturation, which results in blown highlights, there is also inherent noise that is amplified as the sensor's ISO increases. Increasing the ISO essentially amplifies the sensor signal, including both the actual light information and the signal noise. A SPAD sensor, on the other hand, doesn't accumulate charge of total light, but measures each light particle or photon that reaches a pixel. It then immediately converts the photon into electrical charge, which is then multiplied as an avalanche, enabling the sensor to extract even one single photon of light as a relatively clean electrical signal. Quote, both SPAD and CMOS sensors take advantage of the fact that light possesses the property of particles. While in CMOS sensors, each pixel measures the amount of light that reaches the pixel within a given time, SPAD sensors, on the other hand, measure each individual light particle or photon that reaches the pixel. Each photon then enters the pixel, immediately gets converted into an electric charge, and the generated electrons are eventually multiplied as an avalanche, allowing one photon to be extracted as one electrical signal, Canon explained in 2023. Quote, CMOS sensors read light as electrical signals by measuring the volume of light that accumulates in a pixel within a certain time frame. This also counts the noise that enters the pixel along with the light particles or photons, hence contaminating the information received. Meanwhile, SPAD sensors digitally count individual photon particles, preventing preventing from any analog noise to enter. This makes it possible to obtain clear images even in dark places when there is little light and vividly capture subjects in the darkness." End quote. The benefits of the SPAD sensor are especially important in extremely low-light situations. The MS500 from 2023 could already detect subjects in light as dim as 0.001 lux. But Canon has taken things up a notch with the MS510's new SPAD sensor. The Canon MS510 achieves a minimum subject illumination of 0.0006 lux. Canon boasts. To illustrate just how absurd that is, a starlit night is about 0.02 lux, while a cloudy night sky, which is very dark, is 0.007 lux. The Canon MS510 can see in darker conditions than even that. The MS510 also offers improved near-infrared sensitivity compared to its predecessor, further enhancing night mode performance and long-range detection. So what does one do with a camera like the MS510? Well, it's really for low-light security and observation. Think security and infrastructure monitoring. However, Canon notes that it can also be used for wildlife observation and research, particularly of nocturnal species that would otherwise be harmed by artificial lighting. The Canon MS510, like the MS500 before it, accepts broadcast lenses with the industry standard B4 mount. It works with Canon's lineup of 2/3-inch ultra telephoto broadcast zoom lenses, meaning the MS510 can clearly observe objects from very far away. It is a very specialized camera with an equally interesting image sensor, and it has a price to match. It will begin shipping later on this year for $22,800. So definitely some exciting news in the world of industrial camera technology. To have a camera with a sensor that can see in those extreme dark situations is certainly intriguing and impressive. Remember to check out the Liam Photography Podcast Facebook group. It is a private group, and you must answer a security question to join, which is the name of the host of the show, myself, Liam. And I've also opened it up to allow you to give the name of a previous guest on the show to show that you're a listener. Once you are in the group, you are free to post your own original work. Additionally, I am the admin of the Fujifilm GFX 50R group, which is the largest group for the 50R on Facebook. If you own or plan to own the 50R, you can request to join that group. You can find my work at liamphotography.net and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at liamphotoatl. If you like abandoned buildings and history, you can find my project at forgottenpiecesofgeorgia.com. All right, that's going to wrap episode 502 of the Liam Photography Podcast. I want to thank all of my subscribers once again, or listeners once again, for subscribing, rating, and reviewing us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you might be getting your podcasts. If you're not currently a subscriber, why not? It doesn't cost you anything but a second of your time to smash that subscribe button, so go ahead and do it now, please, as well as sharing the show out on social media and elsewhere with your photography friends, and ask them to give it a subscribe and listen as well. Also wanted to remind you to stop by the Liam Photography YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, check out my most recent full-length videos. I've done some really interesting videos in the last few weeks, especially the recent one on the new Insta360 motorcycle magic arm, which is an impressive little bit of gear for your action cameras if you're someone that rides motorcycles, as I do. Now, just to let you know, the channel is currently at 96,200 subscribers, so we're slowly getting closer to that 100K mark, and hopefully that will be happening a little bit later on this year. I want to thank all of you once again for your continued support of the YouTube channel, as well as of this podcast. All right, I will see you all again next Thursday.